champions, I welcome you all to score 360 out of 360 NEET Bio within 250 days, and today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, that is pollination, which has given lots and lots of questions in this chapter, some tricky questions, yeah. So let's go ahead and see that. Before that, let's see what did we cover in the previous session. So in the previous session, children, we spoke about megasporangium, and before that we spoke about microsporangium. And now if you want the notes, then you can join our WhatsApp channel. It includes only our NEET family, no one else, no outsiders allowed. Going ahead, the number of questions which came from this chapter were 2. Okay, the previous year, that is 2024. So 2 into 4, basically 8 marks. Now it can increase or it can remain like this. Obviously, there is no chance for it to decrease. Okay, so 8 marks, obviously we cannot lose it, which is why we chose this chapter as well. Going ahead, there are 2 questions that is yet to be solved. I gave it as homework. Let's see who all got it correct. The ovule of an angiosperm is technically equivalent to megasporangium, megasporophyll, megaspore mother cell, megaspore. So basically, you know the structure of the stigma is like this. Then we have the style, and then we have something like this, which is our ovary, and ovary has something like this, which is known as ovule. Now I say ovule is also known as or also equivalent to megasporangium, because if you see the inner surface of this, you have so many cells coming together, and these cells, children, what do you call them? You call them nucellus. This mass of cells, you call them nucellus, and among them you have the megaspore mother cell, which would be giving rise to a megaspore, and then later this megaspore will be giving rise to embryo sac, and then later embryo sac will be giving rise to what? The female gamete. So basically, if you're someone who is watching this for the first time, please don't worry, the whole thing is very simple. If you watch the video, you will get the whole thing, or else you can read the NCERT as well. I'm not wanting you to watch my video itself. Please invest your time correctly and you can read the NCERT. If you get it, it's all good. If you're not getting it, I am there to help. You can watch the video. Yes. So basically, ovule is acting as a microsporangium, so it will be equivalent to microsporangium over here. Going ahead, in angiosperms, all the 4 microspores of tetrad are covered by a layer which is formed by pectocellulose, B callose, C cellulose, and D sporopollen. So we know pectocellulose is the one that is responsible for making the intine. What do you mean by intine? So basically, if you see a pollen grain, okay, pollen grain has plasma membrane, and surrounding it we have the intine, the inner layer, which is made up of pectin and cellulose, okay, and together you call it pectocellulose. Okay. Going ahead, outside this layer there is another layer which is broken in between. This layer is not continuous, this is known as exine, and exine is made up of the toughest substance, that is sporopollenin. Now children usually get confused with this and this, but I am telling you there is nothing of them involved over here in this question, because the question is 4 microspores of tetrad. That means 4 microspores, when they are together, tetrad 1, 2, 3, 4, they are covered by a layer which is formed by what, children? What is this layer which covers it? It is known as callose. Now this is not something that I taught that day, I wanted you to try it out. It is known as callose, and there is an enzyme, that is callase, that is being released by tapetum. Okay, there is an enzyme callase that will be released by tapetum, which later breaks it off, and then you have different microspores giving rise to pollen grains. Okay, so the correct answer for this question is callose. Is there in your NCERT? Is this there in your NCERT? No, which is why we say we have to go out of NCERT as well. Okay, so I hope that is also clear. Now let's go ahead. Let's talk about pollination. What do you understand by the term pollination? You might have studied it already in 6th, 7th and 8th and all the classes mostly, right? What do you mean by that? Pollination is simple. It means transfer of pollen grains to where? To the stigma of a flower. So basically, pollen grains, you know, are produced from the stamen. This whole thing, structure that you see over here, it is known as a stamen, okay, which includes anther, and then this long filament that you see over here. Okay. So this anther is responsible for producing what, children? Pollen grains. Yeah, and then pollen grains have to land on this particular thing, which is known as stigma. Later things inside the pollen grains, that is your male gamete, will be moving ahead to the style. Okay, the spelling of style, yeah, just an overview for you. Okay, and this region is the ovary, where you have the ovule, and the ovule will be having the female gamete, whereas over here pollen grains will be the one that will have the it itself is not the male gamete, it will have the male gamete. Now, the process of transfer of this pollen grains, children, from the anther to the stigma is known as pollination. Okay, how can you define it? The transfer of pollen grains from the anther or the stamen, okay, yes, just a second, to the stigma is known as, that is this particular region, is known as pollination. Okay, it's as simple as that. Now, it's not necessary that always the stamen would be over here together with this particular structure. What do you call all of them together? You call it pistil or you call it carpel. So, it's not necessary that a flower will have both the structures together. It can be different flowers, or it can be in different plants as well. Okay. So, that is one thing. We will see all of it all at once. Just a second. Okay, my settings and all got changed when I moved it. So, yeah, works. Now, I can see what I am teaching. So, basically this is something that is what you mean by pollination. Going ahead, what do we have? Let us see. Autogamy. So, in pollination, no, there are three different types of pollination. One is autogamy, other one is geitonogamy, and then xenogamy. So, first thing that we are going to talk about is autogamy. Okay. In this type, pollination is achieved within the same flower. Okay. So, one thing you understood, that it has to be within the same flower. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. In a normal flower which opens and exposes the anthers and the stigma, complete autogamy is rather rare. What do you mean by that? Basically, over here, if you see this particular plant. Okay. Now, this particular flower, it has both the pistil as well as what? The stamen. Now, over here, do you think it will be always showing autogamous or autogamity? Basically, no. What do you mean by autogamous? Autogamous is when the pollens of the same flower are going to land on the stigma of the same flower. Okay, it's nowhere else, it's in the same flower, everything is happening in the same flower. But a flower which is bloomed like this, which is showing off as pistil and stamen, do you think it will just show autogamy? I don't think so. Other pollens can also come over here, okay, which is not of this particular flower, right? So, basically, do you think that it will be paka autogamous? No, it won't be paka autogamous. So, that is what they were saying. So, first of all, it has to be just one single flower. Okay, it has to be the same flower where the stigma and the anther and everything is there. Okay. The next thing that they are saying, if it is a normal flower and it has both, but now it is open, then for it to be always autogamous, that is very rare. It can show some other type of pollination as well. Now, autogamy in such flowers requires synchrony in pollen release and stigma receptivity, as in, for example, if you take just a flower which has both the organs, that is male and the female reproductive organs, in this, if I want the flower to be showing autogamicity, over here what should I be doing? What should be the criteria? Basically, both of them, the pollen release as well as the stigma receptivity, both of them, it should be synchronized. For example, the pollen is releasing the pollen grains, okay, sorry. Okay, so let us read this over here. Autogamy. Autogamy. So, basically we have three types of pollination, children. One is autogamy, one is geitonogamy, and the third one is, what do you say? It is xenogamy. Okay. So, I want to show you these things first and then I will go talk about each and everything. Autogamy means you are talking about a same flower. You are talking about same flower. That means the same flower will be having both pistil and the stamen. It will be having both the pistil and the stamen. Now, if it has the stamen can release what? pollen grains. These pollen grains can land on the stigma and everything is good. This is what you mean by autogamy. But over here, please remember, it has to be like this. This is what? Self-pollination, children. This is also known as self-pollination. Okay. Now going ahead, what do you mean by gytonogamy? Do not see anything else. Okay. What do you mean by gytonogamy? Basically, if you see, it is still attached to the plant. This particular flower is also attached to the plant. But from here, okay, for suppose this plant is producing pollen grains, sorry, this flower is producing pollen grains, and the pollen grains are transferring to another flower but of the same plant. Another flower but of the same plant. Okay. It is going to the stigma and landing over there. This is known as gytonogamy. Now, can you say it is cross pollination? Since obviously two flowers are involved, I can say it is cross pollination. Okay, functionally it is cross pollination, but if you talk about genetic nature of the flowers, they are both attached to a single plant. So, genetically, isn't it showing autogamy, the other one? Yes, because obviously one flower will have the same genetics like the other flower because it is of the same plant. So, genetically it will show autogamy, but functionally it is cross pollination. This is what you mean by gytonogamy. Okay, we will be talking about all of them in detail. Now, if you talk about xenogamy, now that is interesting. Xenogamy is where you are talking about two plants. Okay, there are two plants. So, from one plant's anther, pollens are being released and the pollens are going to land on the stigma of another plant. So, over here I can say it is another plant, and obviously if it is another plant, it is another flower as well. Now, genetically, don't you think they will be different? Yes. Genetically, this plant will be different from this plant, just how we humans are different from each other, even though we look the same, right? We all have hands, we all have legs, but genetically we are different. Similar to that, plants also would be genetically different. It is not like different species. I am not talking about different species. It is about the same species, but different plants. Okay. So, one plant is there, another plant is there, cross pollination is happening over here. In gytonogamy, what is happening? It's same plant, but what, children? Different flower. Okay, same plant but different flower. It is showing cross pollination, but this is the one that shows pakka cross pollination. So, this is also showing cross pollination, but this is more accurate form of cross pollination. Okay. Now, going ahead and talking about them in detail. Now, in autogamy, in this pollination, pollination is achieved within the same flower. Agreed? Yeah, you saw it is happening within the same flower, that is why I say it is self pollination. Now, in a normal flower which opens and exposes the anthers and the stigma, complete autogamy is rather rare. If you say this particular flower, can I say it just shows autogamy and none of the other type of pollination? Can I say it does not show pollination, other cross pollination, things like that? No, that cannot be true, because the other pollen grains from some other flower or the same species basically can come and land on the stigma over here, because it is an open plant. It is an open flower, so it can come. So, a flower which is blooming like this, it is said that it is not sure that they will be completely autogamous. Okay, they are not completely autogamous. I cannot say that it will be only showing self fertilization, self pollination. They can also show what? Cross pollination. Okay. Now, going ahead, autogamy in such flowers requires synchrony in pollen release and stigma receptivity. Now, if I want a flower to be autogamous whatsoever, the most priority should be the pollen should be released at the same time where the stigma is receptive. For example, pollen grains are released, but the stigma is not receptive. Will it go and land on it and probably make a pollen tube and send everything inside? No, nothing will happen. It is like you throwing a ball, but there is no one to catch. So, that synchronization is needed over here. So, pollen release and the stigma receptivity is a must. So, what do we need? That is the first criteria that we have. We will write it over here. Stigma receptivity and pollen release, both of it has to be synchronized. Agree? Now, going ahead, also the anthers and the stigma should lie close to each other so that self pollination can occur. So, basically next thing will be, this is the first criteria. Second thing will be position of anther and stigma. So, both of them, what they should be doing? Should lie close. Okay, that is the first thing. So, first is synchronization, second one is position of anther and the stigma. Sorry, this is the second thing. Okay. Now, going ahead, some plants such as viola, oxalis, commelina produce two types of flowers. One is chasmogamous flowers, which are similar to the flowers of other species with exposed anthers and the stigma, just like this. Okay, they will be open. What do you call these open flowers? As chasmogamous. Okay. Now, going ahead, and there are clistogamous flowers as well in the same plant. So, there will be a plant which will be showing two type of flowers. One will be, okay, one will be, what should I say? Okay, whereas the other one will be, it will, so basically I am trying to say one very important thing over here, that chasmogamous flowers, no, they are the ones which are open, which have their stigma, style and ovary, and also this thing, that is the stamen, but all of them they are open. Now, clistogamous flower are the one which have everything inside their bud. So, it is not open, no one else can see it, it is just inside. Now, over here it is in the same plant that both the flowers are occurring, and they have given the examples also, the name of the plants, that is what the examples were. It is very important example, viola, we say no, viola, wow. Okay. Now, apart from that, oxalis, right, we have oxalis and commelina. So, we can say viola and oxalis are not common, you can think like that. They are all this type of flowers, they are all this type of plants which has both the flowers. One is chasmogamous, the other one is clistogamous. Okay. Now, you say in chasmogamous flower, will they always show autogamy? No, it is just exactly like this, right. So, these flowers, no, they would not always show autogamy. They can do cross pollination as well, cross pollination as well. Okay. But now, when you talk about clistogamous, clisto as in they are closed, okay, you can remember closed, clisto, okay, that is how you get confused, Cl for closed, Cl for clisto. Now, over here they will be always closed, and but they will be having their own what say pistil as well as stamen. So, they can definitely undergo what? Autogamy, that is self pollination. And over here I can be assured of two very important things. One is there will be always a seed set, basically fertilization can anyways happen. So, I can anyway expect what? That the seed will be produced, right. But over here can I expect that always fertilization can happen? No, I cannot expect. First thing, for self fertilization also, the what say occurrence, the chances are quite very less. Here they are very close and it is closed. So, obviously they do not have an option, they will definitely do, but for them it is an option, they may or may not do that. So, I cannot assure seed set over there, I cannot assure that there will be production of seed over there, okay. Next thing, invariably autogamous. So, I cannot do anything, they will be obviously autogamous anytime. So, that is what you mean by invariably autogamous, and these important terms are very much important for your exams as well. With this you can get so many questions you can never imagine also. Okay. So, basically if I just sum up autogamy, before that I would want to read it completely and then I will sum up. Okay. So, basically children, okay. So, we have these flowers, these plants, that is viola, oxalis and commelina, they are going to produce two type of flowers. One is chasmogamous, which are similar to the flowers of other species with exposed anther and stigma, and next one is what? Clistogamous flowers, which do not open at all, they are not going to open at all. In such flowers the anthers and the stigma lie close to each other, that is clistogamous. Okay. When anthers dehisce in the flower buds, pollen grains come in contact with the stigma to effect pollination. Thus, clistogamous flowers are invariably autogamous. They do not have an option, as there is no chance of cross pollen landing on the stigma. Clistogamous flowers produce assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. So, yes, next thing that we have over here, do they need pollinators? No need of pollinators, because it's closed, and they're just transferring things inside, right? It's all good for them. So, they do not need pollinators. Now, can you tell me an advantage of this? Can you tell me an advantage of clistogamous flowers? Because they will obviously give you a seed set. That is one advantage. What is the disadvantage? What is the disadvantage? Basically, they will continue showing self pollination again and again and again and again. What will happen? Do you find any genetic variability? No. Everything is the same. Do you think that variations can occur? No. It's very less chances of variations to occur. So, that is the disadvantage of what? Having a clistogamous flower. Yeah. So, if you talk about autogamy children, it is always occurring in between, it is always occurring in the same flower between the pistil and the stamen of the same flower. This is known as autogamy. Okay. Now, if a flower is like this, which is open, which has exposed anthers and the anthers and the pistil, stamen and the pistil, in that case obviously the other flowers can also do cross pollination, but when it is closed, there are not very less chances, nil, the chances are very nil that autogamy would not be happening. Autogamy would definitely happen over here. So, this is one thing. Now, for autogamy to happen, what are the criterias? The stigma receptivity and the pollen release should be synchronized, first thing. Second thing, the position of the anther and this stigma, it has to be close. If it is not close enough, then obviously pollination won't be occurring. So, now for making it happen, we have two type of flowers. Okay, one is chasmogamous, other one is clistogamous. In clistogamous, you will definitely find autogamy. Why? Because they are close, they have the stigma and the style and everything together. Okay, stigma, style, pistil, everything, and the stamen. Okay, so basically that's what I meant. Whenever I say stigma and style, just understand I am talking about pistil. Okay, so basically here I can find that there will be a short seed set, and also it will be invariably autogamous as well. Okay, there is no chance for cross pollination to occur. When I talk about chasmogamous flower, they can show cross pollination. So, it is not always that they show autogamicity. So, that is one thing that you have to keep in mind. Examples of these plants which have both of these flowers, Viola oxalis and commelina. Okay, Viola oxalis and commelina, I can say, I can also call it as common palsy. I can also call it as common palsy, yes, pansy, not palsy, it is pansy. Just a second. Works for you? Chalo, next thing, gytonogamy. Let us see what is gytonogamy. We have already learned about it, but we have to read also. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. I told you there will be another flower and of the same plant. Although gytonogamy is functionally cross pollination involving a pollinating agent, genetically it is similar to autogamy since the pollen grains come from the same plant. So, if you see over here, it is attached to the same plant, so genetics has to be the same. So, genetically it will be autogamy only, but if you see, it is functionally cross pollination because you are talking about two different flowers in general. Okay. Now, do you need pollinating agents, children? Yes. Pollinating agents needed. Okay, both in this as well as this. We are going to read about xenogamy now. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a different plant. This is only type of pollination which during pollination brings genetically different type of pollen grains to the stigma. So, obviously, this is the one that is going to bring about variation. This is the one that will bring more different types of pollen grains as well, something that is not genetically similar to this particular plant. Okay. So, it is between genetically different plants. It is another plant, another flower, but of the same species. Okay. Now, if it is the pollen grains are landing and it's of different species, obviously they would not form the pollen tube because the stigma won't be as receptive. So, there are certain chemicals also being released, which is why they are able to understand, okay, this guy is from my team, I do not have to worry about anything. Okay. So, I hope you got a bit understanding about gytonogamy, xenogamy as well as autogamy. Now, we will move ahead, we will solve a question, or you will solve a question and let me know in the comment section or probably in the chat box. Even in the absence of pollinating agents, seed setting is assured in Commelina, Zostera, Salvia or fig? So, with what you have studied, you can answer this question. Okay. So, please put it 1 and then answer. Say that this is number 1 and then tell me the answer in the comment section. Okay. Going ahead, children, there is one more question. Geitonogamy involves fertilization of a flower by the pollen from another flower of the same plant, fertilization of a flower by the pollen from the same flower, fertilization of a flower by the pollen from a flower of another plant in the same population, fertilization of a flower by pollen from a flower of another plant belonging to a distant population. You can tell me the answers again in the comment section. This is the second question. Yeah. Now, going ahead, let's talk about outbreeding devices. What do you mean by outbreeding devices, children? Outbreeding as in basically when the plants continue to self-breed, self-pollinate among themselves, okay, there is no genetic variation, nothing is happening, and at the end they face a problem which is known as inbreeding depression. What do you mean by inbreeding depression? When the plants now, when they fuse, they won't be giving rise to a fertile offspring. There won't be any fertility in the embryo that is being formed. So, it won't be going ahead and forming a new plant. So, there are lots of problems which occurs due to recurrent self-pollination, and this is known as inbreeding depression. Okay. So, we have to read this, and after reading this we will find the answers for the same. Okay. So, majority of flowering plants produce hermaphroditic flowers. What do you mean by hermaphroditic flowers? Where both the sexes are present. That is, the male reproductive part and the female reproductive part is present. Okay, hermaphroditic flowers and pollen grains are likely to come in contact with the stigma of the same flower. Continued self-pollination result in something that is known as inbreeding depression. Flowering plants have developed many devices to discourage self-pollination and to encourage cross-pollination. So, even the flowers do not want self-pollination to happen. So, they only have evolved themselves in a way that self-pollination could be prevented. Okay. So, the first one is, in some species pollen release and stigma receptivity are not synchronized. So, as I said, for example, you plan a game where you are throwing the ball, but there is no one to catch. So, obviously, it won't be a catch out. Okay. It won't be a catch out. You team up with that person and say, if I bowl, please do not catch it, just lose the thing. So, in that case, this won't be out. This won't be out. Similarly, over here, the pollen release and the stigma receptivity, if it is not synchronized, okay, then obviously fertilization cannot take place. That means there is no use of self-pollination over here. Yeah, and this process, children, it has a scientific name also. This is known as dichogamy. This process is known as dichogamy. Okay. Now, either the pollen release, okay, what do you mean by this whole point that is being explained over here? Either the pollen is released before the stigma becomes receptive, or the stigma becomes receptive much more before the release of the pollen. That is what you mean by this particular statement. So, that is one point. You have to remember the points. Okay. Now, next thing, the anther and the stigma are placed at different positions. So, there were 2 points for autogamy to happen. One was this thing, that it should be in synchronization. Second was the position of the anther and the stigma should be nearby. Over here they are saying ulta, that is, the anther and the stigma are placed at different positions. So, now the pollen cannot come in contact with the stigma. No. If the anther is basically over here, okay, and the stigma is basically somewhere at the top, and they are far away from each other, do you think the pollen grains can move there and pollinate? No, that is kind of very difficult. Okay. Now, next thing, both these devices prevent autogamy, as I said. Now, the third device to prevent inbreeding is self-incompatibility. This is a genetic mechanism. Okay, it is a genetic mechanism, please remember that, and prevents self-pollen from the same flower or flowers of the same plant from fertilizing the ovules by inhibiting pollen germination or pollen tube growth in the pistil. So, what is happening? Basically, now you have the stigma, the style is here, the ovary is here, the pollen is being released from the anther, okay, on the same plant. The pollen comes and lands over here, just to realize that it cannot get inside and form the pollen tube. This is not possible. So, this is known as self-incompatibility, and this is not something that the plant can think and do. It is obviously genetic. It is obviously genetic mechanism, and this is also known as self-sterility and intraspecific incompatibility. Intraspecific as in inside the species. Inside the species also, the same species are there, still you cannot be. Mostly what happens, the other species, if they come, okay, and then try to make the pollen tube, it is not happening because the stigma obviously won't be receptive to that particular species. But over here you are talking about your own species, still the stigma won't be receptive, it won't allow basically this pollen tube to form. This is known as self incompatibility. This is a genetic mechanism, children, and this is to prevent what? Self pollination. It is self sterility also, it is also known as intraspecific incompatibility as well. Now going ahead, next thing, and it prevents, we read this. Another device to prevent self pollination is production of unisexual flowers. What do you mean by unisexual flowers? Basically in a flower, okay, if we talk about a flower, okay, if you just put the male organs and do not put the female organs, this is a unisexual flower, okay. Now in the second flower, you are putting just the female part and the male part is not there. This is also known as what, children? Unisexual flower. But again, this has to be made sure that both of them are not in the same plant, okay. Both of them should not be in the same, that situation also happens, right? You know, right? Both of them can be in the same plant as well, but this should also not happen. In that case only we can prevent self pollination. So anyways, production of unisexual flowers is there, and this is known as dicliny, okay. This is known as dicliny. If both male and female flowers are present on the same plant, such as castor and maize, monoecious, it prevents autogamy but not gytonogamy. They are saying if both the male and the female flowers are present, do you think that autogamy can be prevented? No. Or yes? If both of them are there on the same plant, do you think autogamy can be prevented? That is the question. Can they do that? Yes or no? We will see that. I have a whole chart made for it. We can discuss about that over here, okay. But as of now, I want you to remember all these points that we have said over here. Basically, first point by point, if you see, let's make it, okay, point by point. First thing, there should be no synchronization, okay, of what? Pollen release and stigma receptivity. Stigma receptivity, and this is known as dicogamy. This is known as dicogamy. This important terms I want you to remember, okay. Next thing, what do you do is position of anther and stigma are not close. In that case also you can prevent self pollination. That is what is written over here. This is second point. Now what is the third point? Third point is this, where self incompatibility works, and this is a genetic mechanism. What happens over here? No pollen tube formation, there won't be any pollen tube formation, and also no pollen germination. What do you mean by pollen germination? When the pollen can finally germinate and form the pollen tube, this is known as pollen germination. So self incompatibility is there. There is a genetic mechanism to prevent all this thing, okay. Self incompatibility is also known as self sterility and intraspecific incompatibility. Now comes dicliny. What do you mean by dicliny? That is the fourth point. Dicliny is basically production of unisexual flowers, but again it has to be seen that unisexual flowers, there should be only one sex in one particular plant, another sex in another plant, okay. So this is dicliny. This point can be elaborated into much more things. We are going to study about that. So in total, how many points do we have, children? Outbreeding device 1, 2, 3, and then this is 4. Okay, please remember dicogamy and dicliny and all this thing. Going ahead, as I said, we have different type of flowers, okay, or we can say that we have different type of plants. One type of plant is known as monoecious plants, okay, monoecious plants, where there are unisexual flowers, where there are, children, unisexual flowers. Now monoecious plants are also the one where there are bisexual flowers as well. They can have bisexual flowers as well, but as of now we are talking about monoecious, that is the one that has unisexual flowers. What do you mean by monoecious? That both the sexes are there in a plant. That both the sexes are there in a plant. Now, there can be one flower having one sex, another flower having one sex, or there can be a flower having both the sexes. A flower having both the sexes. In this case, this is known as bisexual flower. Bisexual flower. But in this case that we are talking as of now, we are talking about unisexual flowers. Why did I say unisexual flowers? One flower will be having just one reproductive organ. This flower is having female reproductive organ. This flower is having male reproductive organ. So, they are unisexual. Both of them but are in the same plant. This is why it is known as monoecious plants. So, for your understanding, I will tell you again, monoecious means both the sexes will be on the same plant. It can be on the same flower, okay, it can be on the same flower. If it is like that, you call this flower as bisexual flower. But it can be also in different flowers but on the same plant. This is known as unisexual flowers, where only one sex is there in one flower. Okay. Now, dioecious basically means you have one plant with flowers, and these flowers basically, children, will be having one sex only. So, it will be having stamen, what do you call this, pistil. This flower is also having pistil, okay. But then you will be having another plant, just a second. Where you will be having what, children? The stamen, okay. Over here also you will be having another flower which will be having the stamen. So, if you see, you can note here that this flower, this plant as a whole, it is what? Unisexual. This flower, this plant as a whole is also again unisexual. They are known as dioecious plants. The ones where there will be different plants for different sexes. This will have one sex, okay, that is over here they have just the gynoecium, that is the female part, and over here they just have what? Androecium, that is the male part. So, this is what you mean by dioecious, two plants for different sexes. And as you can see, they are all unisexual. Do you see multiple sex over here? No, there is only one sex, okay. Over here there is single plant with both the sexes, over here there are double plants with different places for different sexes, okay. Now, going ahead and talking about the examples which are given in your book. Coconut, castor, cucurbits, maize, all of them they come under this category, that is monoecious plant. Coconut, castor, cucurbits, maize, okay. All of them they come under this category, that is monoecious plants. You have to remember 3 C's and 1 M, maize. So, this example is of maize itself, so you can remember it. Now, going ahead over there, what do you have? You have dioecious flowers. Example is papaya and then date palm. Example is papaya and then date palm. Now, you have to answer me 3 questions, okay. This plant, that is monoecious, can it show autogamy? Can this show autogamy? What do you mean by autogamy? What do you mean by autogamy? I am talking about this one, okay, where the flowers are unisexual. Where the flowers are unisexual, can they show autogamy? No. So, I will put a condition, monoecious, unisexual, okay, unisexual ones, basically they would not be showing autogamy, because as you can see, there is only one male sex organ over here. So, how can they do self pollination over here in the same flower? No, because they just have one sex, right. So, they cannot show autogamy if they are unisexual, okay. Now, monoecious, one more thing is there, monoecious ones, they are also bisexual. In that case, autogamy can happen, yes. In that case, autogamy can happen. Now, over there, if you talk about dioecious plants, do you think that autogamy can happen there? Over here, you also have single sex, here also single sex, here also single sex. So, what do they self pollinate with? No, nothing, right. So, this would not be showing autogamy. Okay, dioecious plants, they would not be showing autogamy, and for the instance, let us take monoecious unisexual flowers, they also would not be showing autogamy. Going ahead, if we talk about gytonogamy, over here, do you think that they can show gytonogamy? So, from one flower to another flower, can they cross pollinate? Yes, they can cross pollinate in the same plant, yes. So, gytonogamy is definitely possible over here. Okay, gytonogamy is definitely possible for monoecious plants. Now, talking about dioecious plants, from one flower to another flower in the same plant, can pollination happen over here? No, because both of them has the same sex. So, basically in this case, in dioecious plants, gytonogamy cannot take place. Going ahead, so both of them, they do not have autogamy and also they do not have gytonogamy. Talking about xenogamy, what do you mean by xenogamy? Basically, when what will be having, a plant is giving a flower, then there is a different plant with different flower, and in between them, if fertilization is happening, that is known as, pollination is happening, you call it xenogamy. So, over here, do you think xenogamy is happening? Over here, do you think xenogamy is happening? So, if I see, xenogamy will definitely happen from here to here, here to here. So, pollens can definitely send their pollen grains over here to this particular plant. So, xenogamy can definitely happen over here. What about this? What about this particular plant? This particular plant, do you think it will show xenogamy? No, because it is in the same plant. Because it is in the same plant, they cannot show xenogamy. Now, if you have two plants, monoecious plants, then xenogamy can be possible. If there are two plants, then xenogamy can be possible, but over here there is only one plant with two inflorescence. You cannot expect xenogamy to take place because xenogamy has to take place between two plants. Okay, I hope this is clear. So, if you talk about autogamy, children, autogamy is not possible in dioecious plants because they have different sexes in different plants. So, papaya and date palm would not be showing autogamy. Talking about gytonogamy, again it has to be between different flowers of the same plant, but if both the flowers have the same sexes, it cannot happen. So, papaya and date palm will not be showing gytonogamy, but on the other hand, castor, coconut, cucurbit, maize, all of them will be showing gytonogamy. Okay. Talking about xenogamy, again they can show, papaya and date palm, they can only show. So, only thing that they can show is basically xenogamy. Only thing that they can show is xenogamy. On the other hand, if we talk about them, what about them? If it is the same plant, can they do xenogamy? The answer is no. There is one more plant like that, then probably chances are there. But if you talk about the same plant, they cannot show xenogamy. Okay? Agreed? Now, okay, just a second. So, okay, I hope that is done. Autogamy, xenogamy. Okay, remember one thing, I will write it over here so that you do not have any confusion. Basically, see, xenogamy will not happen in just one plant, but if you have two monoecious plant, then it can happen. Obviously, here from male to female, if this is happening, this is not known as xenogamy, it is gytonogamy, right, because in the same plant. But if you talk about two different plants that are monoecious, for example, two different castor plant or two different maize plant, then obviously it can happen. Okay, obviously it can happen. So, we say xenogamy happens in the case of them, but if the question is, if we are talking about a single monoecious plant, children, if they are mentioning single coconut plant or single maize plant, then xenogamy will not happen. Please remember that. So, that is all, children. Autogamy, I hope that is clear. Now, let us make things much more clearer over here. You have the examples, let's learn with example. So, we have monoecious plant and we have dioecious plant. What do you mean by monoecious? Where both the sexes are present in the same plant, children. Where both the sexes are present in the same plant. Can I write it somewhere? I will write it over here. Both sexes on same plant. Okay. Now, it has two choices. Either it can be unisexual flower, as in there can be one flower with one sex and another flower with another sex, but on the same plant, or it can be bisexual as well. What do you mean by bisexual? Where there is a flower like this, okay, it will be having the pistil as well as the stamen. Now, this is what bisexual flower. Okay. So, either monoecious plants can have bisexual flowers which has both the sexes, or they can have unisexual flowers which have different sexes. Okay. But both the sexes has to be there in a plant, that is when you call them monoecious. And coconut, castor, cucurbits, maize, all of them are its example. C, C, C and then one M. Okay. Now, we talk about dioecious. Dioecious means basically you have two different plants. Okay. You have two different plants, and both these different plants, no children, they will have different sexes. So, I make over here, I say that there is the pistil over here. Similarly, I have pistil over here, I have stamen over here, I have stamen over here. So, you see that this is a male plant and this is what, children? This is a female plant, okay, because it has the female part, it has the male part, right. Now, this is dioecious plants. They cannot have both the sexes in the same plant. It has to be in the different plants. So, obviously, if you see, the flowers will be unisexual. All of these flowers that you see over here, children, they all are unisexual, right. Now, let us compare with them and them. Okay. Now, examples of dioecious plants are papaya and date palm. So, papaya will have a male plant and papaya will also have a female plant. Similarly, same with date palm as well. Going ahead, let us talk about autogamy, geitonogamy and xenogamy. So, autogamy means what? Basically self-pollination, where you have a flower, in between the flowers, okay, you need self-pollination to happen. But over here, this flower has just one sex, the other flower just has other sex, right. So, do you think one flower has both the sexes? No. One flower does not have both the sexes. So, autogamy, is it possible or not? It is not possible. This is not possible over here. Okay. Talking about dioecious plants over there, is autogamy possible there? They also have one sex and one flower, one sex and one flower. Do you think that autogamy can happen over here? The answer is no. Talking about geitonogamy, geitonogamy is where there is a flower and there is another flower of the same plant and they are fertilizing or they are pollinating. Okay. So, basically if you see, there is one male flower, one female flower, if from here to here it comes, it is geitonogamy. So, yes, I can say that monoecious plants, they show geitonogamy, but what about papaya and date palm? Do they show geitonogamy? So, from one flower to another flower, can anything pass from here? No, because it is the same sex. So, this will be over here. For dioecious plants, this also would not be there. So, they do not have autogamy, they do not have geitonogamy as well. Talking about xenogamy, let us see. Xenogamy is basically from between one plant and another plant. Okay, so, different plants, different flowers as well, both should have different sex. So, from here to here, or basically from here, from the male parent to the female parent, the pollens can transfer, right. So, they can show xenogamy, they can definitely show xenogamy. So, I can say dioecious plants, they only show xenogamy, children, they only show xenogamy, because they do not have both the sexes in one flower or one plant. Okay. Now, talking about over here monoecious plants, do they show xenogamy? They also can show xenogamy. Just imagine that there is another monoecious plant just like this. So, from here to here they can also transport things, right. So, yes, they also definitely show xenogamy. So, xenogamy is common for all, geitonogamy is just common for them, not for them. Autogamy, if we talk about unisexual flowers, children, if we talk about monoecious plants having unisexual flowers, they will be not showing autogamy, but if we talk about the plants, monoecious plants that has bisexual flowers like this, for them autogamy is possible. So, I will write for unisexual, it is no, for bisexual It is yes. This is the case of them, monoecious plants. Agree? So, now when question comes papaya are gytinogamous or xenogamous or things like that, you should be able to know the answer. Same with them also. Okay? And this is what is exactly written over here, that in several species such as papaya, male and female flowers are present on different plants. That means they are dioecious. That is, each plant is either male or female. This condition prevents both autogamy and gytinogamy. So, as you can see, this prevents both autogamy and gytinogamy. Okay? Now, they can ask you for all this examples that are given over here. So, you have to be very much aware of all these things. Going ahead, question, both autogamy and gytinogamy are prevented in papaya, cucumber, castor or maize directly from your NCERT. This came in 2012. Please tell me your answers. You can put 3 and let me know the answers. Going ahead, pollination, different type of pollinating agents. We are going to talk about them. So, there is a brief intro over here and then there is intro about wind pollination. So, let us read the intro first, the brief intro about the agents. So, plants use 2 abiotic, that is water and wind, and 1 biotic, that is animal agents to achieve pollination. Majority of the plants use biotic agents. So, you know, first thing, first information, majority of them, they do what, children? They do pollination with the help of biotic agents. Second information, pollination by wind is more common amongst abiotic pollination. So, if we talk about abiotic agents, in that wind is the one that got the first rank. Okay, wind is the one that got the first rank because wind is the one that probably helps in pollination more better than water. Okay, now we are going to talk about just wind pollination. We are going to talk about wind pollination. Wind pollination also requires that the pollen grains are light and non-sticky. So, it is all about the male part. So, we will first complete the male part. So, in male part, the first thing is about the pollen grains, how the pollen grain should be. So, if it is wind, they have to travel really well. For traveling really well, if they are heavy, can they travel? No. So, it has to be light, it has to be light weighted. Agree? Second thing that is given over here, it should be non-sticky. If it goes and sticks over somewhere, obviously it won't be moving around, right? So, it should be what? Non-sticky. Agree? Agree with that? Now, going ahead, what do we have? Let us see. Okay. They often possess well exposed stamens. So, their stamens, usually the plants that has what that show wind pollination, they have a very exposed stamens. Their stamens would be like large, they would be exposed. So, I am saying not pollens, the stamen, okay. Stamen, if you talk about stamen as a whole, it will be what? Well exposed stamen. So, that if the wind can come, they can take away the pollen grains as well. Now, large often feathery stigma to easily trap the airborne pollen grains. Now, we are talking about the female part. Let us write. Okay. What do they have? If you talk about the stigma, how is the stigma? It should be large and feathery. Okay, it should be large and feathery. Why do you think it should be large and feathery? Feathery because you want things to, you want to catch things, right? That is why it has to be feathery. The pollen grains which are moving in the wind, it has to be caught. So, that is why it should be large and feathery, children. Going ahead. Wind pollinated flowers often have single ovule in each ovary. So, if you talk about their ovary, so you know they have ovary and the ovary can have multiple ovules as well. But over here, they will always have a single ovule. Why do you think they have a single ovule? Because chances of what? Chances of pollination is less. Can I waste all my ovules thinking that someday the pollen grains would come? No. So, mostly I would say, okay, is that it mostly over here? Often ovary has a single ovule, children. Ovary has a single ovule. Next thing, and numerous flowers packed into an inflorescence. So, you would be having so many flowers coming together and this bunch of flowers together, what do you call them? Inflorescence. Why do you think there are bunch of flowers? Because if at all one flower misses the chance of getting pollinated, even the other can get pollinated. That is the use of this inflorescence. So, basically they will be also having inflorescence. Okay. Now, a familiar example is the corn cob. The tassels you see are nothing but the stigma and the style which wave in the wind to trap the pollen grains. So, as I said, the stigma will be large and feathery, okay, and they have given the perfect example as well, that is of corn cob. So, over here I have the picture of it. This thing that you see in the corn, the yellow color thing that you see in the corn, these are nothing but the stigma and the style, and this is used for trapping the pollen grains. So, please remember this very important thing. Write it somewhere. I will write it here itself. I will write it as impo. Okay. Corn cob tassels is what? The female part. The female part, that is stigma and style. Okay. Please remember that questions have come. Okay. So, if you just cover up in total, you know, in the biotic agents are the most preferred ones. Okay. Now, in abiotic agents, wind is the most preferred one rather than water. If you talk about what are the different adaptations for plants to undergo wind pollination, the male part of the plant will be having pollen, and this pollen should be very light weighted. It should not be sticky, so that it does not go around stick anywhere. It just has to go and land on the stigma. Going ahead, what do we have? Talking about the stamen should be well exposed, so that if wind comes, it can take away the pollen grains. Talking about the female part, the stigma of, don't you think it should be sticky? If it's sticky, then only the other ones can come and attach, right. So, basically they are sticky also. I do not know why it is not written over here. They usually are sticky. Okay, the stigma should be written somewhere over here. Yeah, anyways. So, they have sticky stigma, and also it is large and feathery. It will be what? Large and feathery, so that it can trap all the pollen grains that comes through the wind. Going ahead, often the ovary will be having a single ovule, because you do not want to waste your ovule formation. Okay, you do not want to waste your energy on formation of lots of ovule which might not get fertilized. So, that is one thing. Next, inflorescence, they have a bunch of flowers coming together, so that if one flower misses, the other flower can trap the pollen grains. Now, one very important thing, the corn cob thing, the tassels that you see, it is nothing but the stigma and the style. So, basically it is the female reproductive part. Okay, and wind pollination, this is also known as anemophily. Okay, what do you call it? Anemophily. Please remember it, questions have come. Now, example is this. The book example is given, it is this. Okay, they have, if this picture is shown to you in the paper, and they are asking what type of pollination is this particular plant going to show, it is going to show wind pollination. As you can see over here, they have so many structures being aligned, that is the stamen, multiple stamens are there. Okay, that is being aligned over here, giving rise to multiple pollen grains as well. Going ahead, water pollination, it is known as hydrophily. Okay, it is also known as hydrophily. I will write it somewhere here. Okay, let us read it. Pollination by water is quite rare in flowering plants, first thing, and is limited to about 30 genera, mostly monocotyledons. So, you know one thing, that it is very rare, and by rare I mean that only 30 genera of plants are doing this, and most of them, among them, mostly are talking about monocotyledons. You are talking about monocotyledons, that has one cotyledons. Okay. As against this, you would recall that water is regular mode of transport among the lower plant groups such as algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. Now, something that is opposite over here. So, we can say rare versus something that is very much common. Okay. So, water pollination is common in lower groups such as algae, okay, such as bryophytes and pteridophytes. So, this versus this, you can remember like that. Going ahead, it is believed, particularly for some bryophytes and pteridophytes, that the distribution is limited because of the need for water for the transport of male gametes and fertilization. So, bryophytes and pteridophytes are this much in love with water that they want water for fertilization. Otherwise, that is why their their number is limited, because of the same reasons, as they need water, and water is not there everywhere. Okay. Now, going ahead, what do we have? Some examples of water pollinated plants are Vallisneria and Hydrilla, which grow in fresh water. So, we have two freshwater plants, that is Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Remember the names. Okay. I will be talking about it in person, do not worry. And several marine sea grasses such as Zostera. So, you have seagrasses, the name example is what? Zostera. So, you studied about Vallisneria, then you spoke about Hydrilla, now you are talking about Zostera. Not all aquatic plants use water for pollination. Look, now already they are in water, now still they do not want water. You see how much rare is it? How much rare is it? So, basically even though after being in water, some of them are not wanting water as a pollinating agent. Let us see who are they. So, we have water hyacinth and water lily. Water hyacinth is also known as Ecornia, water hyacinth is also known as the terror of Bengal. It was spreading throughout Bengal if you studied. Okay. So, basically water hyacinth and water lily, the very beautiful water lily, both say we do not want water pollination even though we are inside water. They rely on what, children? They basically are relying on insects as well as wind. So, these are water aquatic plants only, but the flowers basically they emerge above the level of water. As you can see, usually if you see water lily, the leaves are like this, mostly it appears to be present like this at the top. So, this is water lily that is being present, right. So, they are above the level of water, and this is for wind or any insect pollinators for them to see and then do the pollination. Now, but when you talk about Vallisneria, Hydrilla, Zostera, they are all different. They are aquatic and they want water as a pollinating agent. So, let us see that. In Vallisneria, the female flower reach the surface of the water by the long stalk, and the male flowers or the pollen grains are released on the surface of the water. So, basically, okay, I have written it 2 times. Listen, when you are talking about Vallisneria, as you can see over here, the female flower, this is the flower, it is going to the top of the water. Okay. So, if this is the plant, then over here, okay, if you see that this is water, this is the water level, children, then the flower will be somewhere at the top, and similarly you would also be having the male flowers, and this male flowers basically again would be giving the pollen grains which can either transport with the help of water, or this flowers itself can shut themselves and move near to these plants. So, over here the thing that you need to note is Vallisneria, the female flowers have long stalk, and male flowers release pollen on the surface, of the water, and then this pollen can be moving, or they can also, flower part, the male flower part can move, okay, can move towards the female flower part. That is also there. This is the case of Vallisneria and Hydrilla, children, and Hydrilla. Both of them, they are freshwater flowers, or plants, okay, freshwater plants. Going about the next thing, let us talk about let's talk about seagrass. Next thing, they are okay. Vallisneria, let us complete reading about it first. The female flower reaches the surface of the water by the long stalk, and the male flowers or the pollen grains are released. As I said, flower or the pollen grains, any of the things are released in the surface of the water, on the surface of the water. Now, they are carried passively by water currents. Some of them eventually reach the female flowers and the stigma. In another group of water pollinated plants such as seagrasses, Zostera, female flowers remain submerged in water and the pollen grains are released inside the water. So, over here the female flowers are inside the water, the pollen grains are also being released inside the water. Pollen grains in many such species are long ribbon like, and they are carried passively inside the water. Some of them reach the stigma and achieve pollination. So, what is different in the case of seagrass? So, you imagine that this is the water level. So, over here in the case of seagrass, they will also have their own plant, okay, but the flower is basically now inside the water, and the pollen grains are also released inside the water. But there is a thing about the pollen grains. They are what, children? They are ribbon like. They look like a ribbon over here in the case of them. So, I will write ribbon like pollen grains, okay, so that they can move very easily, and pollination in submerged state. So, over here pollination is happening in submerged state and they have ribbon like pollen grains, so that it can move very easily. Talking about water hyacinth and water lily, even though they are aquatic plants, but what do they depend on, children? Say no to water and yes to what? And yes to wind and insects. Wind and insects. For that they will have exposed flowers above water level. I hope this is done. Now, see grasses example you have in your book Zostera. Either way you can remember Zostera. Okay, done. So, that is about water pollination. Now, we go ahead with the next thing, that is biotic agents of pollination, and with this we are going to complete the whole concept about pollination. So, let us read it. Majority of insect pollinated flower are large, colorful and fragrant. So, if it has to be pollinated by an insect, obviously it should be colorful, and it is not like they can see the colors, but with they can only see few type of colors under their different type of eye, okay, some ultraviolet things. So, basically for them it has to be large and it has to be colorful, otherwise they will not be able to spot the flowers, and they should be rich in nectar as well. What is nectar? Basically it's like a welcome drink for the pollinators who are coming the way. Okay. Now, when the flowers are small, a number of flowers are clustered into inflorescence to make them conspicuous. So, when the flowers basically they are small, all of them they come together so that it becomes an inflorescence. So, it's talking about insect pollinated plants, insect pollinated flowers. Their feature should be, it should be large, it should be colorful, it should be fragrant, it should smell nice, so that the insects which are coming like, nice, I can sit on here, okay, and it should be rich in nectar. This is first point, this is second point. Okay. And if they are small, the flowers, if they are small, they should be forming an inflorescence. Okay. Now, when animals are attracted to flowers by color, and if you talk about animals, they are also attracted to flower and color, the flowers pollinated by the flies and beetles secrete fall odors. Now, flies and beetles are like, we do not want good smell, we want bad smell. Only if bad smell is there, you can see that there are flies around it. Okay. So, there would be flowers which would smell so bad. You know Rafflesia? It is a very big flower. Okay. Rafflesia basically has a very bad smell, which is why all the flies and everything comes, and this is their mechanism for pollination to happen. So, to sustain animal visits, so that the animals are coming, the flowers have to provide rewards to the animals. Nectar and pollen grains. Okay. So, what are the rewards usually? Nectar and the pollen grains are the usual floral rewards. Okay. For harvesting the rewards from the flower to the flower, the animal visitor comes in contact with the anthers and the stigma. The body of the animal gets a coating of the pollen grains, which are generally sticky in animal pollinated flowers. So, over here please just understand, if it is an animal pollinated flower, then the pollen grains are sticky. Now, this is not something that we studied as of now, until now, right. So, they will be what, children? They will be sticky in nature. When the animal carrying pollen grain on its body comes in contact with the stigma, it brings about pollination. So, just imagine I am a bee, I go and sit on a flower. Now, over here obviously when I move around, I will be touching my body towards the entire body of the flower. It will be giving all the pollens, and pollens, if they are sticky, they will stick on me. Now, I will go somewhere else and I will sit there. Over here I am transferring whatever pollen grains are there in my body to the next plant. Okay? This is how things work. In some, and why am I coming? For the nectar. So, this is one thing. In some species, floral rewards are in providing safe places to lay eggs. Now, that is the third reward that we have. What is it? First reward was nectar, second was pollen grains. Okay, pollen grains sometimes some they eat, they feed on pollen grains as well, some organisms. So, third thing is basically what? They lay eggs. Okay, they lay eggs. An example is that of the tallest flower, that is Amorphophallus. The flower itself is about 6 feet in height. I have the picture of this. Let us see the picture of this first. Are you? Yes. This is Amorphophallus. Amorphophallus. I hope there is only one L. No, double L is there. Okay, that is the tallest flower. They provide a safe space for egg laying. Now, over here you see something else. What is this, children? This is a moth. This thing that you see is a moth. This flower that you see is of yucca plant. Okay, these are small moth over here. Okay, so they also show similar kind of thing. Let us read about that also. So, a similar relationship exists between a species of moth and the plant yucca. Okay, where both species, moth and the plant, cannot complete their life cycle without each other. What do you call this? Obligate relationship. Okay, obligate. It's like if the one is not there, other one cannot survive. The moth deposits its egg in the locule of the ovary. What do you mean by locule of the ovary? Basically, this is the ovary. The space that you see where the ovule rests, it is known as locule. Okay. So, it occurs in the locule of the ovary, and the flower in turn gets pollinated by the moth. So, flower is like, you get me pollinated, I will give you space for your baby laying. Okay. So, the larvae of the moth come out of the egg as the seed starts developing. After that is why sometimes we say we should not be, we should be eating the fruit first, and then like we should be taking care while eating the fruit, because it could have certain worms, certain things. What are these worms? Basically, sometimes it is the larvae of the moth or something else. Okay. So, they can go around, they can lay their eggs there, and once the seed it starts developing, they come out. So, that is a very unique thing. So, over here children, what all did we study? That if it has to be insect pollinated, then it should be large, colorful and fragrant. Let us write. Large, colorful, fragrant. And if the flowers are small, small flowers have to come together to form what? Inflorescence, so that it can be easily attracted. Okay, the flower. This is about insects. If we talk about pollen grains, the pollen grains have to be sticky, children. It has to be sticky in nature. Next thing, what do we have apart from that? If it is of, if you are talking about what say flies and things like that, foul smell should come. Okay. And if you want insect to come, you should be giving rewards. What are the rewards? Basically nectar, or you give pollen grains. Some of it will eat, some of it will take it on its body, right? And also egg laying space. Egg laying space. Example, what is the example that we have over here? Amorphophallus, and then one more is there. What is the relationship between moth and yucca? It is obligate relationship, where the moth helps in pollination and yucca plant provides space for egg laying. Done? Okay. Now, when insects help in pollination, it is known as entomophily, whereas when animals like lemurs, which is given in your book, okay, you have lemur, you have other things, you have lizards helping around, okay, you have lemur, you have lizards helping around, all of them, they will come under zoophily, whereas animals are helping. Entomophily, as in insects are doing all the work. Okay. And also one more thing, when you talk about water thing, so in most of the water pollinated species, pollen grains are protected from wetting by a mucilaginous covering. So, mucilaginous covering is there which protects the pollen, or otherwise it will get desiccated. So, that is also one very important thing. Done? Now, try to solve this question. This is fourth question. Attractants and rewards are required for what? Entomophily, hydrophily, cleistogamy, anemophily. Now, if you do not know what do you mean by entomophily or hydrophily or anemophily, then what will you do? It is a problem. You tell me the answers. Okay. Next thing. One more question. Flowers which have single ovule in the ovary and are packed into inflorescence are usually pollinated by. This will be the fifth question. Try to solve it. Okay. Now, going ahead, let's solve. Okay, after you are done with solving the questions, let me try to solve the questions. You check your answers. Okay, you can pause the video over here if you are not done with the questions. Please pause the video, do give a try and then only come back. So, even in the absence of pollinating agents, seed setting is assured in Commelina. Why is it assured in Commelina? Because Commelina has the clistogamous flowers as well. Along with Chasmogamous, they have clistogamous flowers where the bud is closed and it has both the anther as well as the stigma and everything there. So, obviously seed setting is assured in Commelina. Along with Commelina, we had Viola and Oxalis. Okay, Viola is also known as common pansy. Going ahead, Geitonogamy involves fertilization of a flower by the pollen from another flower of the same plant. So, you know it has to be a same plant and it has to be a different flower. So, it is the same point, first point itself gave you the answer. Okay, pollen from another flower of the same plant. Then going ahead, both autogamy and geitonogamy are prevented in children. You know cucumber, castor, maize, all of them they are monoecious plants, and monoecious plants they can surely show geitonogamy. Okay, but when you talk about autogamy and geitonogamy, both it is prevented by papaya and date palm. Okay, because they have unisexual flowers, they are dioecious plants. Now, flowers which have single ovule in the ovary and are packed into inflorescence are usually pollinated by. So, single ovule is there, that is one very important thing. Packed into inflorescence is also there for insect pollinated thing, but single ovule is there, that has to be wind, because in wind we are not sure of pollination to happen. So, biotic agents they mostly do pollination, so it is okay to have multiple things, ovule, ovary, whatever you have, but over here it has to be single ovule and this has to be wind. Now, attractants and rewards are required for attractants, good flower, everything, and rewards also are required for entomophily. Okay, you know it is not anemo, anemo means water, wind, hydro means water, clistogamy something different. Okay, so it is entomophily, that is the correct answer. I hope you got your answers correct. Tell me, let me know if you got your answers correct. I will be really happy. And one more question for you children. Which one of the following statement is correct? That is your homework. Do your homework. Let me know in the comment section that you did your homework. Okay. So, that is all about pollination. If you want to practice, you can practice more questions, but on Sunday we will be definitely having a mock test where I will be giving you so many questions from this particular topic as well. Yeah. And if you like the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and get more updates. And if you have any doubt children, you can feel free to answer me, to question me in the comment section. I will give you the answers. Bye bye, take care.